Hi, everybody. Welcome to our annual chat with Matz. Matz, it's great to see you. How are you today?
I'm great. This is it's fine day today. Yeah, here in
Is it
Japan.
is it getting it's getting cool?
Yeah, the recently it's getting cooler in Japan too.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's a little bit
nice.
chilly this morning.
Yeah, well, it's nice to see you. I've been hoping. Obviously, we did this exact same thing this time last year, and I was hoping I'd get
Yeah,
to see you this year, but it didn't happen. How has
yeah.
everything been well with you for the last 18 months or
Yeah,
so?
yes. Yeah. Uh, last last 1.5 years, I have no the business trips and no
Hmm.
physical conferences. So that yeah, my life is much easier because I don't have to move around the world. So that,
Hmm.
but at the same time, lost a lot of chances to meet the community in face. So that is kind of sad things.
Yeah.
I miss that.
Lots yeah, lots of time with family and pets and things like that, though, I hope.
Yes.
Very good.
Yeah, my
Um,
my children don't like that, probably.
well, well, this is a good lead into the first question I had. One of the things that people were curious about because you've been doing this job now for, I mean, how many years has it been now that you've been working on Ruby? So
I started working on Ruby in 1993, so it's been the 28 years.
28 years. So I think it's curious. I think some people ask me, and I thought I would ask you as well. Have you thought about, obviously you're still the top of it. Have you thought about like maybe taking time off? How would you have someone else step into that role for a little bit? And not that we're pushing you out.
Mhm.
People are just curious to find out, like what if you thought about that sort of thing.
Yes. Uh, I'm vaguely thinking about some kind of taking a longer the
Yeah,
vacation on when I will be 60, so that it's
60.
4 years from now, the 20
Okay.
2025,
Yep.
probably a year off or something like that. And I I don't know, maybe we have to appoint somebody to
Yeah.
take my place for a year or
For
so
a little
or
while.
something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, but uh, I'm not sure. I'm probably for that time we can have some kind of like committee things that
Yeah.
I hate that, but
Well, I think
yeah.
it's, I think it comes from like people ask this question, I think for a couple of reasons. One is that they want to know how, like, they don't want you to burn out either. Doing the same job and the same sort of thing for 28
Mhm.
years is a long time for anybody. And so I think that that's one reason that people ask that question too. So,
Yeah, the 28 years is long time, so that it became part of my life, so that you don't
yeah,
have to worry about the wearing off.
that's true.
But yeah, you don't you are not going to be tired to eating dinners or something like that.
That's true. Yeah, I guess it's so intertwined with your life now, I
Yeah,
suspect.
so
So
that you don't
yeah.
have to worry about that kind of things. But
Yeah.
I might have got sick or hit by truck or something like that. So that I'm worrying about that. So that
Okay.
maybe I don't know. Yeah, we have the smarter the core contributors, core teams,
Yeah.
so that
Yep.
the part of them can discuss about the decide the way to go in. But yeah, hopefully we can assign the single person to lead the community and the lead design the language.
Yep.
Uh, one you know I had a one stupid idea so that maybe we can, the fork of the Ruby language, probably named the Ruby 4 or something, that
Sure.
that can be, the played and the experiment with the teams without
Yeah.
me. So that it's a fork off, so that you
That's
don't have to
interesting.
worry about the
Yeah.
compatibility and
Yeah.
consistency or something like that, so that they are trained to be a language designer or something like that.
Yeah.
After that kind of experiment, so that you can now they can work on the mainline Ruby probably named in the
Yeah.
Ruby 5 or something like that.
I mean, it's such an interesting job, right? If you think about like programming language maintainer
Mhm.
at the role that you're at, there's only, I mean, we could fit all of you in a fairly small conference room for all the programming languages ever that have reached the level that Ruby is. It's like,
Mhm.
I could name them a lot of them off the top of my head. And so it's hard. How do you train somebody for that? It's like you kind of can't. Like it's such a good idea to say. How do we kind of ease people into it? It's a great idea. I love it.
Yeah.
Um, all right, let's talk about some tech stack stuff. So
Yes.
it's something I'm interested in, as I saw that the YJIT work is going to go into
Mhm.
Ruby. I wanted to ask you some questions about it. Like, first of all, it looks amazing. The folks over at Shopify have done a great job on it. Are we still going to have the if you forgive me if you've stated this elsewhere, are there still going to be, is MJIT going to stay in there, or is it they're both going to be there, or was it going to replace it, or?
The MJIT is gonna be stay there for
Okay.
a long time for two
Okay.
reasons. The one is the YJIT only support the currently the Intel
Ah,
instructions,
yeah,
Intel CPU
yeah,
only. So that
yeah.
for those other architectures like ARMS or the PowerPC or
Hmm.
relatively less popular CPU, so the
Sure.
MJIT still works. So the
Okay.
MJIT gonna stay there, and for this reason. And the second reason is the MJIT uses the GCC, which is the fully optimized C compiler, and
Yep.
maybe the YJIT is because of its focus on the compiler speed and being lightweight, so that
Yep.
there's no room for the optimizer. So that probably we can apply the hotspot.
Hmm.
Hotspots are compiled by MJIT because of the
Ah,
optimizer. And then
hmm.
the usual JIT compiler should be the YJIT if it
Okay.
is available. Or that kind of the multi-layer JIT can be
Yeah.
improve the performance overall.
So are you thinking that a user won't decide? They won't have to make a decision. Do I turn this JIT on or this JIT on? The system will be configured to say, like on x86, you start off with
Mhm.
YJIT and maybe you turn to MJIT or something. So
If two JIT compilers are available, so
okay.
they are they are decided by the runtime the benchmarks
Hmm.
runtime profiling.
Gotcha. Cool. Has it been going well? I mean, it was a great I mean, it's been really cool to see it. Have you played with YJIT yet, Matz?
Yeah. The right before this Q session, after I recorded the keynote, so
Yeah.
Kokubun-san, who in charge of the MJIT, is asked
Yeah.
me about the integration of the YJIT
Mm, mm, mm.
to Ruby 3.1. So that I think it's gonna be happen.
Oh, cool. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Um, is
YJIT. If everything goes well, so the YJIT will be available for the Ruby 3.1.
is 3.1 going to be this Christmas then, or is that?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
all right. You
So
heard
that
it here first,
we will see the
okay,
YJIT in
all right,
the public releases in two
super.
months.
Not long from now. I remember I remember we were doing this talk this time last year, and you were like, I think we're gonna make it to 3.0 by Christmas, and you made it. So yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
I as a programmer, I kind of half retired for the C Ruby programmer, so that maybe this whole things is up to the contributors, the core teams,
yeah,
so that I really really appreciate them.
yeah, they do a great job. I agree. Um, all right, let's see. Actually, let's talk about this because I think you didn't mention it, but it was sort of similar. Like, some people wanted to know what's going on with MRuby. Are there plans? Somebody asked if when MRuby 4 was going to come out. Are there any MRuby plans going on right now?
MRuby, yeah. I recently prepared, started working on the release of the MRuby 3.1,
Hmm.
which is the more C Ruby 3.0 compatible, and like a keyword augments things, and
Oh, yeah.
many newly available features. But the pattern matching is not yet available yet.
Ah,
The
okay.
pattern matching is too huge, so that we need to more work. And
Mm.
MRuby is becoming more and more compatible to the C Ruby, and the performance is improved, and the memory consumption is reduced, and it's getting better. And
Super.
yeah, and recently the other guy in working on the smaller the compiler, since the
Hmm.
the MRuby compiler, the parser and the code generators are too big
Yeah.
for the microcontroller. So
Oh,
that
right.
for the microcontrollers, we can compile the Ruby programs into the bytecode on the
Hmm.
host, then transmit these bytecode into the machine, the controllers. But
Mm.
the other guys working on the smaller compiler, so that the whole system, including the parser and the code generator and the microcontroller, so that he also made the self-made keyboard uh,
Yeah.
with the Raspberry Pi Pico, which is the
Uh-huh.
little bit bigger than the usual microcontroller, so that you can run Ruby in the keyboard.
Oh no, we better not tell Aaron Patterson he's going to be running a Ruby keyboard by the time this keynote comes out then. So,
And I think he's gonna talk in this conference. Maybe
oh, I
his
can't
talk was
wait.
finished already in
Oh,
the conference.
this obviously is coming towards the end before the videos have come out, but I hopefully people have watched that talk. If you haven't watched that talk, then please go back and look at it. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
he gave a presentation in the Ruby Kaigi last
Mm.
month, and it was terrific.
Was Ruby Kaigi in person this year? I can't remember. Was it virtual?
And Ruby Kaigi was on the virtual,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So people were saying like one of the things that the news and dynamic language this week was, did you see the discussion about removing the gill from Python? Did you see that this week?
Yeah.
Do you have
Recently,
any?
Python has the many, the new hypes, topics, news
Sure. Yeah.
in this area. For
Yeah.
example, the faster C Python, which tries to make Python 5 times faster, or
Right.
the removing gill. But in the past, we both Ruby and Python try to experiment the performance boost and the very drastic improvement. But we had to give up many of them because of the compatibility. So that I'm not sure if they can make it, because
Mhm.
that kind of the gill removal, we probably crush many existing libraries, including the NumPy or something like that. So that the people, yeah. Implicitly, people rely on that kind of the mutual exclusiveness
Yep.
from the gill. So that, yeah, I'm not sure. But
Yeah.
if they succeed, yeah, that's good news, and we will steal the idea from them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I read that article, having done sort of work in this field in the past. There's a lot of what I like to call like accidental locking that happens when you
Hmm.
have a GIL or a GVL that sort of protects regular programs from, yeah, basically mostly working, that all of a
Hmm.
sudden get so weird when you don't have that stuff anymore. So
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
for
I
example,
agree.
that we have several the experiments in the past in the for the Ruby language to remove the gill, and that we every time we failed.
It's so hard. It's very hard because I think that uh, you get very with a big enough program, you get such weird semantics that people aren't used to. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard.
So that
Yeah.
yeah, that's one of the reasons we try to the another approach, right, named Raptor. So that the
Yeah.
Raptor using Raptor is much more easier for the runtime.
Yeah, I had that on my list. That was released in 3.0. Is that still experimental? Is that, are you feeling like it's kind of mostly worked itself out or?
The you know the API wise, so the Raptor is the finished. So the Raptor is available, but the the quality of the implementation is not satisfactory yet. So that
Mm,
we have some kind of the performance issues and some kind of the the crashing issues still. So that we have to improve the implementation. But we are not going to change the API for the Raptor. So
I
the
gotcha. Okay.
our the current Raptor program will run in the future as well.
Gotcha. So you feel like the API is probably stable, but the implementation still needs a
Will
little
be,
work. So,
yeah, it still needs some work.
okay. I had on my list while we're just talking about sort of 3.0 features, things that kind of came out. I'm just, look back at them. Have you something other things that were released that you've seen this year? I know the fiber scheduler came out in 3.0. Do you feel like that this last year have you seen interesting uses for the fiber scheduler?
The fiber scheduler itself is some kind of the fundamental of the
Yeah.
asynchronous I/O. So that the application like a Falcon, which is the
Hmm.
fiber based
Yep.
the application server, or some kind of the async gem, which is the back end of the Falcon server. So
Yep.
we use those kind of we use async fiber through those kind of the wrapper. So
Hmm.
the async fiber itself is not for the mere users. So
Ah.
we are discussing about introducing the async gem in as a bundle gem or something like that, so that
Interesting.
you can use the async features from the Ruby through
Hmm.
the higher level API.
Yeah. It's so interesting, when the fiber scheduler got included in 3.0, I kept thinking about all the time I did in Ruby 1.8 when we had the green threads and how much it felt like having a fiber scheduler. And I remember looking at the PR, the change for the fiber scheduler and how much it made me feel like, because I spent a lot of time in the Ruby 1.8 source code and how it made me feel like all the things that we used to do in the 1.8 source code, like, oh no, I'm going to read from a file descriptor. Oh no, be sure to do this extra thing before I go block here, and all that stuff, which we used,
Yeah,
as very well,
yeah, of course,
all
I
those
wrote
games
that.
that you had to play. Yeah, exactly. You wrote that exactly right. So I thought it
Yeah,
was very fun to look at that. Those same tricks coming back again. So
yeah, that's kind of the nostalgic.
yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah, but
I feel like
the
oh,
in the few releases, so that we are going to have going to provide a higher order, higher level API, and yeah, normal users, not the
mm,
hackers, can
yeah,
use the asynchronous IO from the Ruby easily.
I mean, that makes sense. That's great. Um, One of the other things that was seemed to be talked about a lot last year and into this year was sort of static analysis sort of
Hmm.
tools. I know that some of that stuff went into 3.0. Have you used any of that stuff in the last year or so? And any thoughts on how that work has gone
Hmm.
with folks?
The key component is a type profiler, which we call it type prof, and the
Hmm.
type prof used to be the naive type checker, and that's also the RBS, the type information generator. But this year the type prof has been improved a lot, and we we already have some kind of the VS Code plugin to access the type prof, so that you can have the error checking and the type completion and the method type pop up or something like that. So that
Mhm.
it's quite similar to the experience in the TypeScript, writing
Yeah.
TypeScript in the VS Code. So that
Oh, yeah. I mean,
it yeah
it should be very similar. It's exactly the same sort of tech, right? So
yeah but without writing the type
correct.
declaration.
Yes, that's very true. That's very true.
Very true.
But I mean, from the information density perspective, right?
Mhm.
You have the same kind of information that you would have in an RBS file as you would have in a TypeScript thing, and the
Yes.
same places where there's an escape hatch where it's like this is just a dynamic or an any type or something like that.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah,
that we are catching up the TypeScript development
hmm
experience.
yeah. You mentioned VS Code. Go another thing. Are you still using Emacs every day?
Yes. I tried VS Code several times, and
Uh-huh.
it's okay, but you know I'm going back to Emacs
Old habits.
pretty
Old
pretty
habits.
soon after
I
that.
have done the same thing. I've used VS Code a few times, and I always am like, I actually need to just get this done right now, and then I just go back to Vim. So it's
Yes.
yeah. Um, one other question that somebody had was, I asked you about what kind of other programming languages you've been doing this year, and so a twist on that is, I had somebody ask if you've thought about, obviously the core Ruby is all in C. Have you given any thoughts to say, oh, we're going to rewrite maybe part of this in Rust or applying different techniques to the actual C source code, the C Ruby source code? Have you thought about that? What that might look like, if at all?
Well, I'm a long time C programmer, so that it's hard for me to migrate to the another programming language like a
Fair enough.
Rust or
Yeah.
something like that. And for those languages, they are nice and modern programming languages, but we see some kind of the impedance mismatch between the C programming. So that we have existing the lot of C code to implement Ruby, and
Yeah.
it's rewriting from scratch is nonsense. So that it's a second system syndrome. So that
Yeah.
it's gonna work.
Yeah.
It's not gonna work. So that we if we migrate, so that we have to migrate step by step. So that for
Sure.
that kind of purpose, so that the full integration between the other language and the C is required. And but as a language, like system language or in Rust, being too close to C programming language is kind of the burden for
hmm
the new language. So that
Yeah.
it's kind of the contradiction. So that
Yeah.
the current I'm not fully satisfied with the current integration, Rust integration between C towards C. But
Yeah.
at the same time, if we have the full integration between the Rust and C, so that it might hinders the usefulness of Rust.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I know that many years ago, when Tilde was doing a lot of work in Rust, and they still are, um, they released there was some. Well, that was when I saw this, but there was some interesting code for writing C extensions, writing your extension code, extension gems, and stuff like that in Rust. And that seems like a really natural, good place for people to be
Mhm.
using that sort of thing as well. Obviously, it comes with a little bit of baggage in that if I write an extension in Rust, for instance, then I'm asking all of my users who don't install this as a binary gem to have a Rust compiler on their machine too. So
Yeah. The Yeah, that maybe the Rust extension for Ruby might be interesting. Yeah, probably. And yeah, I'm not gonna the border
mhm,
that kind of challenges.
yeah, I'll ask you as a fellow programming language aficionado, have you played with Zig at all?
Yeah, yeah,
Because I
I
actually, when
look.
I first saw Zig, I actually thought to myself, I wonder if Matz likes this. Because
Yes.
again, like it's so in your C camp, you're a C programmer, but it also gives you all of these interesting things. So anyway,
Yeah, yeah. I downloaded the J from the GitHub and read
yeah.
through the references and yeah, the flavor and the feelings from the language spec and the syntax and yeah, as you guessed, I like that.
Um, Talking about sort of other implementations for a second, have you, I always wonder, and if you get the time to try out JRuby, to try out Truffle Ruby, to try out the other Ruby implementations, or follow them to kind of get an idea of what they are up to,
Mhm.
that sort of thing.
The I often read through the papers and the blog articles from
Hmm.
the Truffle Ruby camp and the JRuby teams, but I not try the running those the virtual machines on my machine because of I have some issues running Java code on my laptop. Maybe because I'm running the Linux full time or something like that. So that yeah, JVM doesn't work well on my computers. Probably I need some
Well,
help.
this would be this is a fascinating, totally tangent. What kind of computer are you using these days for writing
The
Ruby?
yeah, last year I bought my first desktop.
Oh,
I worked for the laptop my whole life.
yeah,
The the first desktop machine, which is the Ryzen 9 the 12 cores or something, and
nice.
yeah, too much power.
It was a
Too
big
much.
step up from you had a ThinkPad for the longest time, as I
Yeah,
recall.
yeah, yeah. I used to ThinkPad for years, maybe decades.
Hmm. Did you have? I've never asked you this. I always wondered because I really wanted one. Did you have any really teeny little Sony Vios back in the early '90s?
Yes, yes, yes. I had one.
You had one? Okay. I love those machines. I had a long ago, I actually ordered there was a place where you could import, this is obviously not Sony, but Toshiba, you could import super thin Toshiba um, Japanese
Uh,
laptops that I
yeah,
bought one in
Liblet.
college. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
this
I had
tiniest
one
little
too.
laptop. It was amazing. You had one too. Do
And
you upgrade every couple of years usually, you think?
the you know the span the years between the upgrade is getting longer because of the
Yeah,
I you know last 1.5 years I don't travel, so that I don't have to
right.
bring my laptop out.
Right, exactly. Yeah. You can,
Yeah, that's one of
and
the
you're not
reasons I
gonna.
bought a desktop computer.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. So now you can SSH into it and run a build farm at home. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I can stay home longer.
yeah, exactly. Um, Only one I had on here was about Ruby version managers. Um, you know, we've had many of them over the years, and
Hmm.
you don't have to play favorites. I just, like people might want to know, like if you use one and what you use when you need to switch around between different versions of Ruby and compiling things and stuff like that.
Yeah, actually, I don't use the Ruby version manager on my computer, so that
Yeah,
I named it the Ruby 3.1 and the Ruby
sure. Yeah.
yeah, the platform Ruby, the Ruby 3.1 and the MRuby. Then yeah, I changed the name for them.
So I'll sort of end at the end with a question here, which is sort of a bigger question, which is, you had the goal of Ruby 3 by 3, and you succeeded. And I think that we're all you and the team. It was amazing to see you and the team get there. Now, software never stops. So do you have any thoughts on what you want to do for Ruby 4? Are you going to do 4 by 4? Do you have to increase it 4 times now, or any thoughts on any big features that you've been thinking about that you might want to start to include in Ruby 4?
Hmm. Yeah, as in keynote, yeah, you don't see
Okay.
it yet.
Yeah, I
And
haven't.
then
This is
I have
we're
two,
recording this
yeah,
before the keynote
twofold
is
goals.
out. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I have twofold goals. And then
Okay.
one is the, the more rich set of tools, like the Solar Graph, which is the
Oh
language server
yeah.
protocol, and
Hmm.
then the RubyConf and the linter formatter, everything. So that the having rich set of the tools, so that we can improve the experience and the productivity of Ruby programmers. So that
Hmm.
is great things. That for the next couple of years, or maybe longer than that, so the productivity improvement will come from the tools, not from the language. So
Okay.
the next couple of years, I probably the syntax enhancement like we had in the paramatching will be the will less likely to happen. So that we are focusing on tools for one. The second one is the performance. The performance, including the performance of the micro benchmarks, will be
Hmm.
improved. So that we will focusing on improving the performance of the virtual machine. And in theory, Ruby can be faster. So that like introducing the YJ and improving those JIT compilers and the adding cache or the search seeking for the fast pass, we are going to improve the performance. So that I set the next goal, so that which is the Ruby 3x3 Redux, which means that the future Ruby 3.x will be 3 times faster to compared to the Ruby 3.0,
Mm,
which
wow.
which should be 9 times faster than Ruby
Yeah,
2.0.
that'd be amazing.
Yeah, in
Uh,
some benchmarks,
yeah. I
in
think,
some benchmarks.
one of the things that this has come up amongst, the circles I travel in, tool writers and Ruby developers and stuff like that, and I want to get your thoughts on it. One of the things that always sort of not stymies, but one of the things that's hard sometimes is Ruby not having a standard parser. And I know that Ripper has gotten good. Is Ripper still going to be the standard parser if you are writing tools that to rely on that sort of thing? Like, is there? I mean, if we want to focus on tools, I think what how is the team going to make sure that there's a good standard parser for everybody to use?
Yeah, I have no concrete idea yet, but
Okay.
we are working on the Reaper, and also we also provide the AST gem, which provide the AST from the Ruby standard browser.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, we understand the drawbacks of those parsers, because of those parsers are not the streamed parser, so that when we have error in the programs, that it just stops parsing.
Yep.
But for the program tools like you know like a language server protocol, so
Yeah.
that we have to parse you know the the programs that is under the work in progress or something. The
Yeah. But to
incomplete,
keep
we
going
have
so
to
that you
first.
get,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So that we have to support that kind of parsing in the tools. I'm not sure which should be supported by the Reaper, or maybe we have to create another parsing tools or some. I'm not sure yet, but we understand the needs
Mhm,
for those kind of you know the streamed the parsing library.
mhm. Okay. So that might be if someone's out there is interested, to look at that, to suggest anything, that kind of
Mm,
thing. So yeah, cool. Um, I'm at the end of my list of questions.
yes.
Um, This is usually how I usually make it about this long. If we were in person, then I would go to the audience, but there's no audience here, and my cat isn't in the room either to ask questions. So,
I'm sorry.
anything else? Like at the end of the conference, this always plays at the end. So, anything you have to say at the end here, or anybody?
Yeah, for Ruby, the language, the community, Ruby community is very crucial, important part of the Ruby language, and and the Ruby conference. This conference is the key component of the Ruby community. The, yeah, I'm glad we could have the half virtual, half physical conference in Denver, and
Hmm.
yeah, I wish I really could attend the physical conference next year.
Yeah, me
Yeah,
too.
like I said
I
last
hope that.
year.
Yeah, I hope we can get everybody together next year.
Mhm.
We're still hoping for same for RailsConf this upcoming in 2022 that will be in person. So hopefully we that will give us a chance to get back to things. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I see situation has been improved so that yeah, I hope we can see
me too.
in
Yeah,
face to face.
me too. All right. Well, thank you for your time and have a wonderful rest of your year. Good luck with the release in the next couple of months. It was great to see you and talk to you again.
Yeah, thank you, Evan.